Have you ever sat in your favorite chair, staring out the window and wondered what happened? One day, your child was calling you for advice, coming home for Sunday dinners, texting you about silly things. And then, little by little, it all just stopped. The calls got shorter, the visits less frequent, until one day there were no calls at all. No texts, no holidays, just silence. And you ask yourself, did I do something wrong? Did I miss something? Are they just busy? Or are they gone for good? If you're over 60, you've likely lived through more than your fair share of life's ups and downs. You've raised kids, built a home, worked hard, loved deeply, and now all you really want is to feel connected to your family. But for some, there comes a time when that connection doesn't just weaken, it disappears. Now, this video isn't here to scare you. It's not meant to make you feel worse or dig up old wounds. It's here to help you find clarity, to stop wondering and start understanding. Because the truth is, there are signs, real emotional signs, that your kids aren't planning to come back. And sometimes, knowing the truth, even when it hurts, can be the first step toward healing. So, let's talk. Let's sit down, just like old friends do, and walk through this together. You're not alone in feeling this way. And you're not weak or foolish for missing them. Missing someone you love is the strongest kind of love there is. When love turns into waiting, and waiting turns into heartbreak, we have to look deeper. The first sign is one that doesn't always shout. It whispers. It happens slowly, like a light dimming over time. It's the emotional cutoff. Not just fewer phone calls, but less of them in each conversation. You ask how they are, and they say fine. You try to tell them about your day, and they're distracted. You talk about the past, family vacations, childhood memories, and they go quiet. It's like they're pulling away piece by piece, but not in a fight, not with anger. Just vanishing emotionally. This kind of distance is harder to face because it's not always dramatic. There's no big blowout, no final word. Just less and less. And we tend to make excuses for it. They're busy with work. They've got the kids. It's just a phase. But weeks turn into months, and you realize they're not just busy. They've chosen something else over you. And I know that realization can be devastating. You gave everything for them. You sacrificed, supported, showed up when no one else did. And now you're left wondering if all of that somehow wasn't enough. But I'm here to remind you. The way someone else shows up or doesn't erase what you gave. Your love was real. Your presence mattered. And if they've disconnected emotionally, that says more about where they are in life than about who you are. Sometimes that emotional cutoff turns into something more concrete. That brings us to the second sign. They start rewriting the story. What I mean by that is this. They begin to paint a different picture of the past, one that makes you look like the problem. Maybe they call you controlling, or say you were too emotional. Maybe they tell others that being around you is stressful or toxic. And you're sitting there thinking, where is this coming from? That's not the relationship we had. And you know what? You're probably right. That isn't the relationship you remember. But for some adult children, especially those who struggle with unresolved feelings, it becomes easier to rewrite history than to face it. They feel guilt, confusion, or shame, and instead of sitting with those emotions, they push them away, and you with them. It's like they need a reason to stay away, so they invent one. That way, they don't have to feel bad about leaving. They convince themselves that you're the one who made it too hard. And that can feel like a second heartbreak, losing your child and having them erase the goodness you shared. If you're hearing stories about yourself that don't match your reality, if your own child is retelling the past in a way that hurts or shocks you, please know. This isn't about your memory failing. This isn't you not understanding. This is them building a wall. It's painful and it's unfair, but it's not your fault. And I want you to pause with me here for a second. Take a deep breath, because I know this is heavy. I know that for some of you watching, these words feel like looking into a mirror. You've wondered why they've gone cold. You've been blamed for things that don't make sense. You've held out hope that maybe this was just a rough patch. But when someone distances themselves emotionally and starts rewriting the past, it's often not just a phase. It's a pattern, one that many parents, just like you, are struggling to make peace with. I want you to remember something before we go any further. Even if your child has gone quiet, even if they've turned their back or rewritten your role in their life, you are not erased. Your love, your memories, your presence, all of it was real. You were there. You showed up. And no version of the story that they create can undo that truth. Now, as we keep going, I want to hold space for both your pain and your strength, because you can carry both at the same time. You can grieve what's been lost and still build something beautiful for yourself. You don't have to let their absence define the rest of your life. You deserve connection, laughter, and joy, even if it doesn't come from where you thought it would. Let's keep walking through this together. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It lingers too long. It echoes. It asks questions you're too afraid to speak out loud. Are they really never coming back? And as much as you want to believe it's temporary, that they'll text you out of the blue or knock on your door just to say, "Hi, Mom," or "Hey, Dad," somewhere deep inside, you start to feel the shift. That brings us to a third sign, one that's subtle but piercing. You start to notice they no longer check in. Not for holidays, not for your birthday, not when someone in the family is sick, not even when they know you're going through a hard time. There's a kind of silence that feels accidental, like maybe they forgot or their schedule was packed. But this one feels intentional. They don't ask how you're doing. They don't send a card at Christmas. They don't call on Thanksgiving. You hear about family news through someone else, or not at all. And when you do reach out, they either don't respond, or they respond with one or two words, cold and distant, like they're checking a box, not having a conversation. And the worst part? You start to second-guess yourself every time you want to call. You wonder if texting "just thinking of you" will annoy them. You wonder if you should apologize again, even when you're not sure what for. You begin to shrink in your own life, afraid that reaching out will make things worse. If that's been your experience, I want you to stop right here with me and breathe. This is not what love looks like. This is not what a healthy parent-child bond becomes with time. A healthy relationship may have distance. It may even go through conflict. But it doesn't erase empathy. It doesn't ignore pain. It certainly doesn't stop caring altogether. When your child no longer shows up in your life, not just physically but emotionally, that's not just space. That's absence. That's a choice. And sometimes the hardest truth we have to face is that the people we love most may not have the capacity or the willingness to love us back in the way we deserve. Now, I know you might be thinking, but isn't it my job to keep trying? To keep loving? To be the bigger person? And the answer is yes, to a point. You can keep your heart open. You can remain kind. But you don't have to keep hurting yourself to prove your love. That's not noble. That's self-destruction. And here's the thing most people won't tell you. Sometimes your child pulling away has nothing to do with your actions. Sometimes it's about them, their pain, their confusion, their unhealed wounds. And they choose to turn away instead of turn toward you because it's easier. They think silence is safer than conversation. And in doing so, they forget that their absence cuts deeper than any argument ever could. But let me tell you this. You do not have to sit in silence just because someone else is comfortable with it. You deserve relationships that are mutual. You deserve to be seen, heard, and remembered, not only when it's convenient. And if you're still with me, nodding quietly, holding back a tear, or maybe letting one fall, I want to share the fourth sign. It's the most painful, but also the most final. It's when they erase you from their lives completely. Not just emotionally, not just through silence, but through action. They unfriend you on social media. They delete the photos. They stop showing up to family events where you'll be. They take your name out of the conversations. And when others ask about you, they change the subject. Or worse, they speak of you like you're just a chapter they've already closed. It's a form of emotional self-protection for them, but for you, it feels like being buried while still alive. This kind of erasure doesn't happen overnight. It builds. First the emotional cutoff, then the story rewriting, then the silence. And then, one day, you're gone from their world, even though you're still here, still loving them, still hoping. And that hope is the hardest part, isn't it? Because it never dies easily. Even after all the signs, all the silence, all the space, a part of you still holds on to the idea that they might just walk back through that door. Say they made a mistake. Say they miss you. Because you would welcome them. You want to forgive. You do almost anything for just one more chance to make it right. But here's what I need you to hear. If someone chooses to remove you from their life, without explanation, without compassion, without even the courage to have a real conversation, it is not your job to crawl back into their memory. You don't have to beg to be remembered. You don't have to justify your love. You don't have to prove you were a good parent by chasing someone who has already made up their mind. And I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. I know a part of you might still be whispering, but what if I try one more time? And you can. Of course you can. But you have to ask yourself, is the door even still open? Or am I just knocking on a wall, hoping it turns into something it's not? Because the truth is, you can knock forever and still get silence. So instead of knocking, maybe it's time to turn around. Not to give up on love. Not to shut your heart. But to give yourself permission to heal. To choose peace over pain. To stop chasing someone who keeps running. And to start remembering the most important relationship you still have, the one with yourself. Let me say that again because it's easy to forget when we're hurting. You are still worthy of love even if your child no longer gives it. You are still a whole person even if they treat you like a fragment of their past. You are not just someone's parent. You are someone. And your story isn't over just because they've walked away from it. Now, I know this isn't a simple topic. It's not something you can fix in a day or even fully understand in one conversation. But if today you've seen yourself in these words, if even one part of this resonates, then I want to remind you, you are not alone. Thousands of parents across the country, across the world, feel exactly what you're feeling. The grief of being forgotten, the confusion of sudden silence, the ache of watching someone you love erase you. But you are still here. You are still standing. And the fact that you've watched this far means that you're ready. Ready to stop waiting by the phone. Ready to stop walking on emotional eggshells. Ready to start finding peace, not in their return, but in your own strength. There's something incredibly quiet about acceptance. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or sudden clarity. It comes like a soft evening breeze, wrapping itself around you when you least expect it. You're sitting alone at the kitchen table, maybe sipping your coffee or folding laundry, and it just hits you. They're not coming back. And I'm still here. It hurts. Of course it does. Love never truly leaves us, even when the person does. But at some point, the pain begins to change. It becomes less about them and more about you. About what you do next. About whether you stay in that place of longing or take a step, even a small one, toward something better. The truth is, when your adult child has chosen distance, silence, and erasure, they've made a decision. Maybe it came from pain they don't know how to process. Maybe they were influenced by people who don't know the whole story. Maybe they simply reached a place in life where they couldn't face the emotional weight of the relationship anymore. Whatever the reason, the silence speaks for itself. And you are still living inside the echoes of that silence. You hear it in the missing birthdays, in the empty chair at Christmas, in the photos that never arrive. And yet, you are still waking up every day. You are still feeding the dog, tending the garden, paying the bills, folding the laundry, living a life they've chosen not to be part of. That's not weakness, that's strength. Let's talk about what to do with that strength. Because now that you've seen the signs, now that your heart has caught up with your mind, it's time to talk about something even more important. You. Not the you that was someone's mom or dad. Not the you who was blamed, forgotten, or misunderstood. The you who is still here. The you who still matters. The you who deserves joy. So what do you do when your kids have pulled away for good? You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop replaying every conversation looking for the moment it all went wrong. You let go, not out of anger, not to punish them, but because holding on is hurting you more than it's healing them. You reclaim your story. You wake up and make coffee because you like the smell, not because you're waiting for a knock on the door. You go for a walk because you want fresh air, not because you're hoping to clear your head from the silence. You say yes to dinner with friends, to that hobby you've been putting off, to that trip you never took. Not because it fixes everything, but because it gives you your life back, piece by piece. And yes, it will feel strange at first. You might feel guilty the first time you laugh too hard or enjoy a day without thinking of them. But you are not betraying them by living. You are honoring the part of you that still wants to grow. Some parents ask, but what if they come back later? Shouldn't I be ready to welcome them? And the answer is, you can love someone from a distance without leaving the door wide open for pain. If they come back someday, truly come back. With humility, with honesty, with accountability, you will know. But don't live your life waiting on a doorbell that may never ring. That's not love. That's limbo. And let's be honest, sometimes they do come back, but not for the reasons you hoped. They come back because something went wrong in their life. They come back because they're curious or because they want control. They come back because you finally stopped reaching out, and now they want to know why. But that kind of return isn't healing. It's a loop, a test, a power play. If they return without doing the inner work, without acknowledging the pain they caused, without apologizing for rewriting your story or disappearing when you needed them most, then they are not returning out of love. They're returning out of convenience. You don't owe anyone access to your heart without accountability. Love is not unconditional if it's one-sided. And boundaries are not barriers. They're bridges to better relationships, to peace, to self-respect. You might be thinking, but they're still my child. And you're right. That will never change. You will always carry them in some part of your heart. You raised them. You knew their laugh before anyone else. You soothed their nightmares, packed their lunches, clapped the loudest at every school play. That love doesn't vanish. But love, real love, can't survive on memory alone. It needs presence. It needs effort. It needs truth. So today, if your heart is aching, know that it's okay to miss them. Missing someone isn't weakness. It means you had the courage to love deeply. But don't let that love chain you to an empty space. Let it lead you back to yourself. There are still people who need your kindness. There are still friends who smile when they see your name pop up on their phone. There are grandchildren, perhaps, who still want to hear your stories. If not now, then maybe one day. And most importantly, there is you. with time still ahead, with breath still in your lungs, with the ability to choose what the rest of your life will look like. You can spend the years ahead waiting, wondering, grieving a relationship that may never return. Or you can choose to heal. Not to forget, but to forgive yourself for what wasn't in your control. To stop apologizing for existing. To stop asking for permission to feel joy again. There's a kind of freedom that comes from letting go, not of love, but of longing. And once you feel it, you begin to remember who you were before the silence. You remember how it feels to smile and mean it. You start to write new chapters that don't depend on anyone else showing up to make them meaningful. So here's what I want to leave you with. You are not broken because someone else walked away. You are not unlovable because someone stopped loving well. You are still worthy, still valuable, still deeply, beautifully whole. And even if you don't hear those words from your child, you can hear them now, from me, from this space, from the part of yourself that's been waiting to come back to life. You've given so much to others. Isn't it time to give a little more to yourself? You've spent years being there for everyone else. Isn't it time to be there for you? Don't let their silence define your story. Let it be the moment you stopped waiting and started living again. If anything in this video resonated with you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe your story will help someone else feel a little less alone. And if you found comfort here, go ahead and tap the like button. It helps us reach more people who might need this message. And subscribe to Strong Elderly Life if you'd like more conversations like this. Real, heartfelt, and focused on helping you live well at every age. Remember, you're not forgotten. You're not alone. And the best chapters of your life are not behind you. They're still being written. Here's to living your best life at any age. Starting now.